Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of my videos, and in today's video I'm going to be looking at another one of my games from the daily chess.com championships that was played in just about a couple of weeks ago, in fact. This particular one was against the number 3 seed. So as I said, this is a bit of a big game. If you have actually seen some of my other videos, you would know that this particular player that I was up against, I'd actually played previously as black. I had a very good win in the Sicilian against him. So check that game out if you want to see that particular win. But as I say, this is game number 2 that was getting played simultaneously to this one. So let's start it off. I was playing as white. The game started e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, and I went into a Spanish game, a Ruy Lopez. So here my opponent played a bit of a tricky sideline variation to this. So here my opponent played knight to d4. This is known as the bird's defense. So essentially black gets out of the potential pin or the doubling of the pawns on the c file, and he essentially asks a question to my bishop. Where are you going to put the bishop? The downside of such a move, however, is that now white has an option to essentially double black's pawns on this file. So it's maybe not the best thing. And also with the pawn being on d4 after the exchange, potentially later on I can undermine it with moves like c3. Nonetheless, it's still a bit of a tricky line. It's actually it actually is relatively playable for black, so it's certainly something you can look in your own time if you want something to play against the Ruy Lopez. So after I captured, e takes d4, I then castled, getting on with my development. c6 was played, and here I put my bishop onto c4. So I want to maintain its influence on the centre, and I guess this move discourages the move d5, which would where black would nearly take over the entire centre. So here my opponent played knight to f6. I now defend my pawn with e1. d6 was played, and c3. So this is the idea. As I say, just like I've sort of explained, this move is now undermining this pawn. I'm now threatening just to capture this pawn and get a nice big centre. If black captures my pawn here, well, this doesn't really help his case too much either, as now I capture back with my knight and take over the centre that way. So it's a pretty bad situation for black here. Here my opponent just decided to get on with his development. He put his bishop to e7, so now I'm up a pawn here. However, my pawn structure is not brilliant, so that's the only downside. Potentially black might be able to win back a pawn just due to the fact that I've got not the best pawn structure in the world. So d5 was played, so now my opponent started to strike in the centre, and after I captured back, he captured back, I then threw in this check. Bishop came here. Instead of capturing this immediately, which would help develop his queen, I now put my queen onto e2. So if he does capture, I then capture back with my queen, and everything's good. Here my opponent played a6, so actually he's had to waste another move trying to evict this bishop, and now I just decided to bank on the temper that I'd gained there and capture off. The queen captured back, and my knight came to c3. So I think, again, the engine gives us a sort of inaccurate move, but I think this is absolutely fine. We're now influencing the centre. We can always play d3 next move to then get our bishop out somewhere along here. So it's all looking pretty good so far. As I say, the only downside is, I'm up a pawn, but I've got these doubled isolated pawns, which isn't brilliant, but does give me some dynamic ideas along these open files. So my ideas were to try and get my rooks onto these open files at some point, really influence the centre. Black's king is still not castled as well in this position, and it's a bit difficult for him to castle, as if he does castle, he'll lose this bishop due to this queen. So he's got that struggle to try and sort out. In any case, here my opponent put his rook to c8. I now play d3, so I'm getting ready to get my my bishop into play. h6 was played, which is probably just a bit of a weak move. I don't really influence the position at all here. And now I played bishop to f4, which is actually a mistake. And the reason why it's a mistake is there's actually a very interesting move that I missed in this particular variation. So the move knight to a4 is really cool. So I now threaten just the simple blunt move, knight to b6. So just delivering a check, so not a check, a fork to both the rook and the queen. And it's very difficult for black to try and meet this threat. If he captures this knight, which looks like a really, really good move, in actual fact, this just blunders a mate in one after the queen takes here. So this is now checkmate in one. So black doesn't want to have to do that. But then how does he defend against this threat? It's actually very, very difficult. Because if he moves his queen, as you've just seen there, to like a square like c6, for example, again, we've got a similar threat here. So in actual fact, it turns out the best move here, according to the engines, is actually queen to e6, which is, as I say, it does defend against b6, but it's not particularly great. As now, well, black just simply goes down a second pawn. I've also got my rook onto an incredibly good square. I'm going to maybe get my bishop out and then get my rooks doubled along this e-file. It's going to be a particularly difficult position to try and defend this for black now. In any case, so what happened in the actual game? So going back to bishop to f4, which is what I played, rook came to c6, queen to f3, castles, put my other rook onto c1, the bishop came to b4, I put my rook to e2. I was thinking about trying to either double on the c file or double on the e file. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do yet. And here my opponent just gave up the bishop pair, I took back, and then b5 was played. Now, it's interesting, after bishop to e3, although I'm up a pawn here, as I say, my position's still a little bit log-jammed. I wasn't too comfortable with my pieces. They're not the best placed pieces in the world, and they're kind of tripping over themselves a little bit. So, I think, as I say, very, very comfortably placed, but I wanted to try and get them slowly but surely to good squares to hopefully then win the game. The rook came to e8, rook e to c2, queen. There was queen to e2 now. So I'm just trying to make sure all my pawns are nicely defended. Queen to c7, queen to d2. So now defending both of these pawns now. b4 was played, so it looked pretty good. As now, he's now threatening to take here. I can't take back, obviously, because of this threat. But now, after c4, I'm actually looking pretty good in this position now. So I can actually breathe a little bit. I'm starting the process of closing down the queen's side here. So the knight came to g4. And, this now has quite a blunt threat of attacking this pawn. Put my bishop to f4, which now defends this and also attacks the queen. So I thought this was quite a nice move. Queen came to a7, now hitting this pawn. And I just decided to go back with my bishop back to e3. Here my opponent captured, I captured back, and queen came to b8. So, I was very happy with my position here. I'm starting to look really, really decent. I no longer have these double pawns here. These are now become actually nice connected hanging pawns here. And I can actually start rolling these very, very soon. I'll be looking at ideas of d5 or c5 very, very quickly. So here I played the move d5, and unfortunately this is a big blunder. And you're about to see why it's a big blunder. If you remember the queen and this knight hitting this h2 square, the very blunt threat, I basically forgot that that threat existed. I don't know how I forgot it. I think, as I say, sometimes when you're playing so many daily games, you can't see the I can't remember the word. Is it the wood through the trees? Is it, or the trees through the woods? Whatever it is, whatever the phrase is. And here I just completely forgot. Queen takes on h2. So now I've got a particularly bad position now, as my king safety is so poor here. So despite all that hard work, to undouble my pawns, get everything all sorted in my position, I'm now going to get a very, very fast attack here. So I put my king to f1, the only move. The rook came to f6, very nice move. Now hitting this f2 square. I needed to get my queen out of the way, and I thought I'd try and do something active by putting my queen taking here on b4. But this move totally loses. A very nice little puzzle for you to try and solve. Can you see what black did in this position? So the move that he played was knight takes on e3. I resigned here. A very nice move, taking advantage of my of this pin here. So yeah, a very a very quick turnaround in this game. As I say, there was a bit of, I blundered pretty badly in this this game, but nonetheless, my opponent played very well to keep trying to find little threats in my position, keep attacking my position as long as I dig, and it worked, because eventually, despite the fact that I was about to untangle my position, he was able to then win the game. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as I say, I'll hopefully post some more of my analysis very soon. Bye bye.